Well, hello again, friends, and welcome to another session with Tomei Schnitzius, whom I'm delighted each and every time to be talking to and reconnecting with the energy that we shared so often and so much when I was living just a couple of miles down the road from Tomei in Colorado. We have explored many different avenues of spiritual growth with you in our conversations here. And among other things, has been rather esoteric knowledge about mystery schools and about our being almost like walking, talking pyramids of energy, vortices of energy, etc., which is really difficult for us to get a grasp of in terms of, oh, yeah, well, that's me walking down the street, interacting with people. We clearly carry a different sense of who we are, what our identity is, etc. And what I'd love to explore with Tomei here is what happens to that physical, three-dimensional sense of identity, that physical sense of identity that we have when we really do authentic inner work and begin to discover deeper and deeper dimensions of ourselves. So, Tomei,
Sounds
I'm
great.
throwing throwing another hardball at you or not, but let's engage with that, and um, we'd love to hear. Thank you.
It's kind of the question is who are we? Um, I come back to the Alice in Wonderland movie or book where the Cheshire Cat is looking at Alice and who are you? And it's kind of a funny line, but a very serious line, you might say, because it's like probably the first time Alice has ever been asked who she is. Um, and what is the real, is there a deep meaning to it, or is it just kind of a lighthearted way of looking at yourself? Or and there's so many different ways of looking at it, of course, if we go through the mind, and then there's other ways of being with it when we go through the heart. So again, there's that understanding in some respect that the mind will give you definitions of who you are, and the heart will allow you to have an experience of who you might be, because every experience brings a different sensation or feeling, different experience of who you are in that moment. So I hate using the word separation because we're not separate, yet between the two different ways of looking at ourselves, we can go into each just to kind of get an idea of which choice do you want to make, because in every moment that you're walking your journey, you have a choice. Even if you don't think you have a choice, even if you don't know you have a choice, there's always choices that are being made. And so what part of you, who are you, is making that choice? How are you making that choice? Um, and then we'll give you some idea of like, who am I being in this moment? Am I being my mind? Am I being my heart? Am I being somewhere in between? So it can be a little bit confusing, but if we keep it kind of simple, which is what I'd like to hopefully do here to help others understand, is that first of all, who you are in your mind. Well, that's probably the easiest place to go for us right now, because that's pretty much how we see ourselves in the world. That's how we see ourselves at home. So we see ourselves through definition through the mind. Depending upon who you are in the moment, right now is a definition. I'm a male. You're a male. We are both bald. We seem to both have blue shirts on right now. I got the email from you, so I wanted to wear blue today. Um, so those are definitions. I might have a bigger nose than you have. You have more hair in your head than I do. Um, so those are all definitions. You're older than me. I'm younger than you. Um, I'm in a location in Colorado. That's who I am right now. You're in a location in Oregon. Um, what kind of car do you drive? What kind of relationship do you have? Um, what kind of likes and dislikes do you have? Do you like football? Do you like baseball? Do you like reading? Do you like watching TV? Do you like movies? All these little things that we can sit back and say, this is who I am. I'm somebody who likes action figures. I'm somebody who likes baseball. I'm somebody who likes steak. I'm somebody that's a vegetarian. And fill in the blank. You can say who I am. This is who I am. Fill in the blank. And it's all by definition. And what that definition does, unfortunately, is it separates from you from for you from the rest of the world. It doesn't mean that other people don't like steak, but you might like certain cuts of steak. You might like cooking it a certain way. There's so many other variables that come into the definition that we have of who we are while we're in this third dimensional, dualistic, good or bad type environment. Um, we can get real political about it. You're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, or I'm an independent, or I'm whatever, and who did you vote for? Who did I vote for? So there's all these likes, dislikes, judgments, definitions, and so on. And everything is from the mind. And everything is from the mind is something that's been taught to us. So when we were born, I'm born into a German Catholic family. I'm born into a German Catholic family. Okay, so now separate that. I'm German. I'm Catholic. And so there's specific definitions of what that might be. Well, what kind of Christian are you? What church do you go to? Where do you live? Do you have a community? I mean, on and on and on to define and define and define. And so, depending upon who you think you are, instead of who are you, because that opens the door to a whole different discussion, which we're going to get into. But who you think you are limits you to the truth of who you really are. So when we think of ourselves through the mind and we define ourselves through the mind, it limits us to be only that which our definition is. It doesn't open the door to be something other than that. And there's a fear based way of looking at that if I don't follow through with my definition, especially of what others think of me, then there's a chance I'll be judged, or I'll be a chance that I won't be part of the group, or I might be looked at in a certain way. And so there's all these definitions from how outside of you think you are. So, first of all, you grow up into a defined arena of what you think you are. And then you go out into the world, and all of a sudden, oh, there's more definitions that I can be. So, I can be a linebacker on the football team, I can be a halfback on the football team, I can be a pitcher in baseball, I can be a home run hitter in baseball, I can be the catcher in baseball. I can be somebody that writes books. I can be somebody that edits books. I can, there's just so much that you can be as far as defined in the world, depending upon who you think you are. A lot of that, of course, is based on something we've talked about in the past, which is programming and life strategy. Depending upon how I grew up, what it looked like in the experience I had, how I then defined how I wish to be in life, as opposed to how I could be open to life or being with life. When I have a program or a life strategy, I'm following a defined way of living. I'm not open to anything else for the most part. I might take off once or twice or something, but for the most part, a good percentage of the time, the choices I make and the way I'm in life and the way I see myself has all been defined for me already. And I make choices based upon that. So, for instance, Tomasa Dewar, he's industrious over focus. That's what I learned being in a German Catholic family. This is what you do. It's what you do that defines you. And even how you do it is how it defines you. And do you get it done sooner is how it defines you. And maybe one day somebody will say you did a good job and you might feel good, but then you got to go back and do because there's somebody else that wants something done. And so you're always looking to define yourself based upon the doing that you're doing. And there's other programs, of course, out there for people to attach themselves to continue the definition of who they are.
The burden is that when you do a good job, then you take on that identity as the person who always does a good job. So then you have to keep doing a good job at everything you do. So
based upon what? Yeah, it's like
you never you never escape that one. Okay.
No,
because so much of our culture is defined around what is your job, that is your profession, and then whether you do a good job at that profession. And that's an overwhelming, at least for men, an overwhelming aspect of our identity. Okay.
Yeah,
and then absolutely. What we have to live up to once that sort of has taken a form. Yes.
And so you can almost feel the pressure of that. You can almost get a sense of how much energy that you give away to the definition of who you think you're supposed to be. And the energy you give away is what is called stress. And the energy you give away depletes you. And so you're walking around depleting yourself constantly. And you wonder why you're tired. You wonder why sometimes you can't get through the day. You wonder why you can't sleep at night. You wonder why you have to take drugs for it. You wonder why you have to go see a psychologist to get through it. And on we go, because the definition that you think you're supposed to be is the driving factor, as opposed to taking that all away and being free. And to take it all away to be free, which we're going to talk about a little bit, is to let all that go. They call it dying unto yourself. And you let all that go, and all of a sudden you have a mom and a dad that comes to you and say, what are you doing? You got a degree in accounting. You're the CFO of a company. What do you think you're doing, giving it all up and going to find yourself? What's wrong with you? So all of a sudden, the very thing that you thought you were is now coming back from another source that's telling you you're a piece of fill in the blank because you didn't follow what we think you should follow. And so now there's guilt. So now we add that stress on top of the stress you already have from the job that you're doing because you're not happy, but you know that's who you're supposed to be, and yada, yada. You know, it just goes on and on and on. And so at some point, is thinking of your definition of who you are really serving you? I'm not saying it's not in some capacity, but if you're attached to that definition, which means you let it drive you, even unconsciously, you let it drive you. And even when you figure it out and you say, I can't change now, I'm too old. I can't do this because I'm too old now to change. And I guess I'll just have to accept who I think I am, even though I know I could do something else.
What you have just said in the last few minutes evokes within me the idea, well, maybe my German family should have had a contest with your German family about all of the things you're supposed to be and do to be okay.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming because there were, and I think this is true in all our lives, our cultures, the people we regard as our significant reference group, has for us expectations about who you are and what you do. And therefore, are you just performing at the normal level? Okay, or are you deviating too much from that level in one direction or another?
Hmm.
and therefore not fitting in with us.
Yeah, exactly. And so we can even break it down into saying that not only do we have a definition of who we are supposed to be with dynamic family, let's call it, um, but then as we go out into the world, then we're welcoming in other things. So we're welcoming in community, we're welcoming in even our hobbies and habits that we have, which are other individuals we might be doing those with. How do they look at us and who we are and how we should perform? Um, do we see it in relationship with, say, a significant other? Do we change our definition so we can please that person? Um, I really like you in blue all the time. So when you wear the red or you wear the plaid that you have like 15 shirts of, I hate plaid. So then the 15 shirts just hang in the closet forever,
Yep, there you
until
go.
maybe a person comes along and says, I love plaid. So all of a sudden you're bringing out new shirts that have never been worn, but now they're out of style. So you can't wear them anymore. Um, so round and round we go. And so there's so much to all this as far as definition is concerned. And it seems to me in the work that I do with others as well, that those definitions don't change per se. What changes are situations based upon, say, the life circle of that individual, welcoming in something new into the circle, maybe starting a new job in their circle, and so on and so forth. But the basic premise of their thinking of who they are is always a core value of driving them into think of who they are. So if I'm in a new relationship, I'm still going to be trying to do the relationship as best as possible to get a good outcome. If I'm in a new job, I'm still going to be the best in the new job so that I can do the best and still get a good outcome. And again, fill in the blank for anything else. And we think that we're making new choices, but we really aren't. It's just like if you have a manipulator in your life, for instance, and this manipulator has finally got to the point where it's become physical and they're abusing you in such a way that you can't handle anymore. So you finally leave the relationship and you get in a new relationship. And this one is a quiet manipulator. And somebody says, well, don't you see they're still controlling you? They're controlling you in a quiet way, but they're still manipulating. Oh, no, no, no. They're totally different. They're so nice. They're asking me to do things in such a nice way all the time. Instead of yelling and screaming at you to do it, they're doing it very quietly. Manipulation is manipulation. It comes in all kinds of sizes and boxes and colors and so on. But the core value of wanting to be manipulated is still the idea of pushing the definition of who you think you are. And so to really get to the core value of our thinking of the definition of who we are, it's really, I suggest, important to sit down with a piece of paper and start looking at the programs that I've talked about with Carl Jung, to start recognizing and being honest with yourself about highlighting the traits that are in there so you can kind of get a feel for the thinking of who you think you are, and then to start looking at the choices that you've been making in life and see if they match up. And of course, they probably will. And so then you're trapped in a way of thinking of who you're supposed to be instead of being with what is. So
So
that's a lot.
Carl Jung has, my sense is, Tomei, that he has two different sets of things that are patterns. Okay.
Mm-hmm,
And one is the framework that you've worked with that
mm-hmm,
has really, really been instructive to me. And the
mm-hmm.
other is a set of archetypes,
Yeah.
like, see, are you a sage? Are you
Mm-hmm,
a leader?
right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Those are big overarching kinds of things, but what the power of the work you did is to get us, in the classes to face what is the behavioral pattern that you
Mm-hmm,
are continuously manifesting and engaged in, whether
yeah.
you recognize it or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other ones, the
that
archetypes
would,
are tough because a lot of times people will identify with one because they want to be that.
yes.
And so it's not necessarily a really good way to go. You might want to check that out later once you've figured out your program, your life strategy, and say, how do you perform this life strategy? Do you perform it as, a warrior? Do you perform it as a sage? How do you perform it? And all of a sudden you can see then how you play act the program and the strategy that you have finally understood your mind that's driving you. Um, and so it's good either way, but I find that it's easier to do the 8 life strategies first because they're more practical in looking at them for in today's world. And the archetypes are a little bit different. They can be a little bit confusing for most people, especially if they want to be the warrior, for instance, or they want to be the
Well, they're
king.
idealized roles. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, once we do that kind of work, that's still the work of the journey within, doing that kind of work. It's finally to understand how mind driven we are, as opposed to heart driven, and it's a really important thing to come to grips with. And it's not to judge yourself in it; it's to understand that this is just the way it developed. These are the choices you made unconsciously, so it's just the way it happened and it developed. And then to come to a place where you can say, okay, I can see how I've defined myself in so many different roles. I'm a father. Okay, so you define yourself as a father. You know, I'm a really good father because I do everything for my kids. So you're like, okay, there's that industrious overfocus. How come you don't let them do it for themselves? Well, because a good father is always there doing things for their kids. Okay, where did you get that idea? Probably from your father that you were raised by, that said you have to do these things for your kids because they have to know that you're a good father in whatever aspect it was. So to understand that it's okay to be a father, there's nothing wrong with being a father, but a father has many opportunities to be with their children in ways that really enhance their ability to live their own lives, as opposed to tell them to keep doing the same thing that you had to do and that your dad had to do and that your grandfather had to do, and so on, and follow in the same footsteps in this kind of drive of definition of who you're supposed to be according to family ties. So we have to sit back at some point and say, okay, what is this all about? What have I defined myself as? And take a hard look at your life circle and see how that plays out in your life circle. And we've talked about that. What's your relationships and your job and your hobbies and habits, and how you look at raising a family, for instance, or being in a relationship with a dynamic person, and so on and so forth. We look at our life circle and see how does that play out, and does it play out in a way that serves me or not? In most cases, we're going to say it probably doesn't serve you, because you're attached to always doing it the same way. So you wouldn't even know if it's serving you. But once you stop doing it and you get into that really uncomfortable way of being in life because you're like, I don't want to make another choice. And you can feel the fear and the tenseness of like, but I always have vanilla ice cream. I can't have chocolate. And your body's like, whoa, okay, take that big step and have a scoop of chocolate. You're like, wow, this is pretty good. Or I don't like making beans that way. I like making beans this way. Okay. And then you make beans the other way and you find out, that's kind of an interesting way of making beans. And they're not big choices, but the point is you're interrupting the flow of the definition of why you do the things you do all the time.
Well, if I can add something to that for just a second, okay?
Sure, go for
Because
it.
you're evoking things that arose for me, what, a decade ago when we were doing this work together. Um, but it is the choices we make that we think will give us a given kind of benefit.
Yeah,
And
of
it's
course.
that benefit, it's that anticipated, if I do this, people will look up to me more. Okay.
Right.
Or if I do this, I'll have more fun. All right.
Hmm.
Well, that depends on how you value the regard of other people and the esteem of other people, or the enjoyment, physically and sensationally for what you might do otherwise.
Yeah.
So these decisions are often, that is, the patterns we develop, I believe, are often grounded in reasons and rationales that themselves really need to be examined.
Yeah. And we call those attachment to outcomes.
Okay? Say more about
So,
that.
yeah. So attachment to outcomes means the reason I'm going to do this is because I want to get X.
You
I
want to
want to get
which?
X. So fill in the blank
Oh,
for X.
X. Okay.
Yeah. I'm doing this way because this is what I'm looking for. It's usually all the time too. It's not just this in this one case. And
Yes.
so there is an underlying theme of an attachment to some kind of outcome that you're looking for because that's been ingrained in you when you were a child. So when you do things, you're doing things from your mind and definition because in some cases you're hoping that the attachment to the outcome will happen. And when it doesn't, I guess I'll just have to try harder. So you don't let go of the attachment to the outcome. You just enhance what it is that you're choosing to do to get there. And that's the issue, is to finally detach from the outcome because in the attachment itself, this gets a little deep, and the attachment itself is a emotion. And that emotion is the driving factor to why you have to have the outcome. So the emotion could be a feeling of better than based upon being worthless. And so we have to work on that attachment, that emotion, and release that emotion. Therefore, the outcome doesn't matter anymore. You're doing things just because it's what you love to do, not what you're looking for. So you're back to being in the moment of being present with what's going on and being with, as opposed to doing something to have an outcome that may or may not happen. And so that's
And
that's a lot of work.
you have just described being true to yourself
Yeah, absolutely.
instead of being true to what you imagine others think about you.
Correct. Or even what you think about you.
If I may, in the formative stage of my career, stepping out of graduate school and getting a PhD and going into the academic profession, okay, you are defined by your publications.
Right.
That is,
Hmm.
how significantly do you contribute to the knowledge in the world, and how significant are the journals and things that you publish?
Hmm.
Okay. And
Right.
I think one of the best decisions I ever made, okay, having published in two major journals while I was still in graduate school, is
Hmm.
realizing in my career that in the first 2 or 3 years, if the whole purpose of this career is to publish papers, okay, and research that almost nobody else reads, because everybody else is so busy writing papers that nobody else will read so that they can get published. I
Yeah.
am I am wasting my time. I mean, I am
Yes.
absolutely going down a path I don't want to be on.
Right.
And I walked away from, you know, what could have been an elite academic pathway
Hmm.
because it just absolutely it I finally got in touch with. I, I'm not that I didn't enjoy some of it, but it was going to have to be, see, even more esoteric papers and even deeper papers and even
Mhm.
papers that define the whole nature of everything. And that just got to be an undertaking I was absolutely unwilling to do.
Yeah, and if you um, if you understand even back in the day of Yeshua's day, you know, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the rabbis got caught up in the same circle that you got caught up in. Because all they're doing is rewriting and rewriting and rewriting the Torah and the laws and the rules and how they should be looked at, and how they should be, discussed and defined and so on and so forth. And they missed out on the truth of what they are. And that's to take anything that was written in the past by any of the prophets and bringing it into your life and seeing how it feels. Searching for the heart in what was going on and not allowing the law to drive you and make you feel guilty when you didn't follow something like, you're only supposed to have your hair so long. And if you don't have it that long, if it's too long, then you're going to get cast out of the temple. Like, what does that have to do with living your heartfelt way in a community to assist other people? Well, of course, it has nothing to do with it. But if you're that way, then you're out, man. I mean, you're just out. If and so it gets away from definition. And what Yeshua did was he said, forget the definition, be real in the moment. If there's a poor person sitting on the ground and they need some help, and you have all this money because you've collected all these things from all the people in the community, and you don't help the poor person, what are you doing? You're lost. You're lost in your own circle of definition of what's supposed to be, and you're attached to it. And then they would get angry and enraged and fight him and want to kill him, and they did, because he brought a message to help everybody help each other, and they were losing the power over the people. And so if we look at ourselves, what are we doing really? Are we living life in definition? Are we trying to make ends meet because this is how we're supposed to make ends meet? Can I make ends meet in some other way? I had an interesting conversation today with somebody, and they said that they were talking to someone else about the life they're living now, and they were complaining and saying that they're just not making enough money. They're just not, they're really not making the money. And so the question was, is the money more important, or is the bad relationship that you came from where you had a lot of money more important?
Mhm.
And so that's just a question to throw out there. Can you release the attachment to something that doesn't feel, that really doesn't, it's just a practical thing, and you're allowing your emotions to drive you to habit? And so that again is a great example in some regards of understanding that you're attached to something, and it's up to you to see where does that attachment lie, what emotion is driving that attachment or that definition of who you think you should be, what it is that you want, what you need. Needs the biggest word here in the definition of driving us in life to do certain things and make certain choices, because there's a need for me to be happy according to the way I'm supposed to be happy. So that need is driving me to have the attachment to the outcome of the happiness. And that need to do it is the doing that happens over and over and over again because there's a need. And so when I can break it all down, which you guys out there, I'm sure you're thinking, oh my God, there is so much work I have to do. um, and there's some truth to that. But the point is you can just come to a place where you understand your need. That's ego, that's drive, that's definition, that's mind driven. If you can find out what your need is, you might not be happy to find out what your need is. I'm not going to say it's going to be, oh my gosh, this need is overwhelming for me. You know, if you talk to a heroin addict, they would say, I need to have heroin. And you take the heroin away from them, and what do? They go crazy because they know they need the outcome. They need to have the heroin to stay in a buzz. They need the heroin to mask everything that's going on. You take that need away without working through it, it's going to cause a lot of turmoil. And so, what we want to do is try and find out what our need is and then sit down with ourselves and say, okay, how can I make different choices? I can't just, some people go cold turkey. I've never known anybody can just say, okay, I'm just going to go cold turkey and it'll go away. No, that's not the way it works. Because that emotional attachment to whatever that is pretty deep. It's been ingrained since you were a kid. So it's difficult, and most people don't want to go in there. But when to see who we are, and we see who we are through definition, we have to keep going back for it. Okay, we know the definition, but where did that come from? And why do I feel like I have to keep doing that? And so there's that core emotional value that's created through the need. And we have to work with that to get to a place where we're finally at a place of what we've talked about before, crossroads. You finally say, do I really want to live life like this anymore? And it's scary, very scary.
Every television commercial
Yeah.
is telling you what you need
Oh, yeah.
and
Nowadays,
reminding
drugs.
you of the inadequacies or the dangers of how you're now living
Mm-hmm.
unless you buy their stuff,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Mm-hmm. No question. That's why it's like turn off the TV, because actually, if you watch TV most of the time, there's more commercials than the program than you're watching. And you don't even realize that, because, when the commercial is on, you just say, oh, I'm going to walk away and get something to eat. You walk away and get something to eat, you're still hearing it. And that energy is coming into you, whether you think it is or not. And it doesn't mean it's coming to you directly like it would if you were sitting down watching to it, but it's still coming to you all the same. And so the message is just need, 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 need. They could put the word need up there. And if that's all they did, they'd say, well, what do I need? And then they'd say, okay, here's what you need. Because now they got you captured about just the commercial with the need. And so, like, well, what am I missing here? I need something. So you guys, I'm sure, will tell me what I need. Um, so, so that's that part of who you are. Who you think you are is really the better phrase. And anyone can see that there's a lot of work involved there. And who you think you are, you might be okay with. It's not to say that we're all bad people or anything like that. But the question is if you can be with yourself in such a way that you can find out what is the definition of who you are. It does it, honestly, does it really serve you? That's the key. In some, I'm not going to say in, I'm not going to say in all cases that it's not going to serve you. It might serve you in some cases, um, but not all the time. And in most cases, when we're just starting to do the work in the beginning, um, we don't even know it's there. The need is there. We're not quite sure what's going on. So it takes a little time to investigate for ourselves what is it that's really causing this need. Once you come to the crossroads, um, it's a really scary place to be because you know what your need is. You finally realize that this is what's been going on, but you don't know what to do. You've been doing this your whole life, for instance, and so, wow, change, whew, change is tough, as we know. And so all of a sudden, you're going to make different choices, and you're not quite sure how that works. And so, what we're beginning to finally, I would say, recognize is that there's something else I can be. I don't know what that is, but at least I've come to a place that says there's something else that I can be. And the key word is be. It's not, there's something else I think I can be.
Hmm.
Now you're just replacing something old with a new thinking of what it is you wish, to define yourself by. So we come to a place that finally says that there's something else that I can be. And so when you make that internal, I'm going to say it's an internal aha moment, the forces that be around you recognize that you have internally said this to yourself, but you're also saying it to them. In one of the past um, podcasts that we had, we talked about the unification principle that everything is connected, and our internal process is connected to the outer process, and the outer process is connected to the internal process. So when you make a shift in your way of being with something and looking at something, the outside knows you're making that choice as well. And so it's saying, oh, this is what he wants to be or she wants to be now. Okay, we'll provide synchronicities that might help in making those choices because they've made an authentic choice of being something else. They don't know what that else is yet, but there is a concerted effort, you might say, with the outside universal beings that will be there to serve you, even though you don't know they're there, where somebody might walk into your class one day at the yoga rec center and they set up right next to you and they start talking to you and you've never seen them before. And you're right at the right time to listen to somebody that's going to tell you how to be something else. And they're going to tell you how they be in their life. Huh. Well, that sounds really fun. I've never even known that was available. But you're at a point to be open to it because you've just made the choice that you're going to be something else. And the universe says, we're going to have Patty sit right down next to you and we'll see if that works out. They don't force it. They're not trying to, make you make that choice. That's up to you. But they will provide opportunities for us that we don't even know they're working for us. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, we'll look back. When did it all start? It started when that lady sat down next to me at yoga class and she told me to come to a class on Blavatsky's work. And I couldn't believe I was going to go do that. And you got involved with a bunch of people that are looking for themselves, and now you're off and running. And it wasn't the class that helped you get off and running. It was the lady that invited you to do it. And you can always look back when you do, when you've made, say, a life change, within yourself. What happened when you made that choice? Something usually unique or synchronistic happened to make that choice verifiable for you, or made it stronger in whatever way it is, to kind of give you a little nudge, to go in that direction. And so we then shift from defining who we are into finally understanding, if I open myself up to other choices, there'll be a different way I can be who I am. So that's the shift. But the discussion today was, who are you, as the Cheshire Cat would say? And are you the thinking human being, or are you the being human being? Which one is it? And which one would you choose to be, actually, given the chance? The being human being is the opportunity to open up your heart to all things, to experience who you are in this dynamic energy of dualism, as opposed to define who you are in this energy of dualism. Being who you are is an experience. It's not to judge anything as best you can, but to be with things. And that is the extension, I would say, of divine intelligence, of source, of God, if you want to call it that, is to understand that we are a sacred human being. We are sacred. We are divine. We have within our heart a special spark that comes from all things. And that special spark developed as Bill Spady in this lifetime. And when that spark developed as Bill Spady, it forgot that it was a spark. It became defined and got lost in the understanding of this is who I'm supposed to be, as opposed to being whatever is. And as you work back towards the beingness of it, the spark then becomes larger and opens up and starts wanting to experience more and more of what life has to offer instead of life telling you how you're supposed to be defined in it. So, who we are truly, if we break it all down, and this again is mystery school stuff in some regards, is that we are the divine intelligence. We are divine spark. Yeshua got killed for talking about this because he said he was God. What they didn't hear was he was trying to tell them they were too, but they didn't want to hear that. They only wanted to hear that he was blasphemous. And so to get rid of him, if he were to talk enough people would say, yes, this is who we are. And instead, the powers that be had to condemn him because they were going to lose their power. They were going to lose all the people. And so the point was, he came down to show everybody that you must die unto yourself to become your truth. What does that mean? It means what we've been talking about today. It means you must die unto your definition. That is not who you are, and open yourself up to the truth of being an open heart, to being humble, to being compassionate, to being caring, to being moral, to being blessed, to have gratitude in your life for anything that comes along. All those higher qualities, and I don't mean higher, I mean energetic higher qualities of being in the world and presenting yourself to life in a way that will invite anything that comes along. Whatever challenge comes, you're there because you want to be in that challenge to keep growing and keep going into your truth, into your divine intelligence. The defined one says, no, 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 this is who we are, and that's all we're going to be. And if you go outside the box, oh man, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be worse. It could be terrible. So you out of fear, you got to stay here. You can't be doing that. That's not who you are. That's who you think you are. So Christ's message was very demonstrative, of course. He had to actually go up on the cross and show people, I'm dying unto myself and I'm choosing to do it because I want to show you that this is what you have to do. It doesn't mean you get up on a cross, but you know what? Your ego and your defined self is like carrying a cross. It is attached to you so strongly that you don't want to give it up. And one day if you choose to, you will be free. And that freedom is the freedom from that definition and all the guilt that comes with it, and all the intensity, and all the stress, and all the has to be's, and all the shoulds, and all the coulds, and everything that the world wants you to be in whatever capacity it does is gone because you don't care about that anymore. All you care about is experiencing what's in the moment. And that's your truth. And when you do, you get to experience things that have always been there, but you were so closed down because of the definition that your heart could not be involved. And you were choosing that, but you didn't know it. When I look back personally on my life and all the things that have happened, they've all happened to help me get to where I am today. I'm in complete gratitude for everything that's happened. It doesn't mean that I agree with it. It doesn't mean that I would treat other people the way I got treated. That's not what it means. But I see clearly that if all those things didn't happen, you and I would not be talking about this today. I will have not served as many people as I've served of the gratitude of my heart for thanking the universe for helping me become who I am. And my gift back to them is to serve as many as I can to help them find themselves. That's the truth. And so your authentic self will look to project out that same truth that you'll find about yourself in a way that it's not an agenda, but it is a true serving. You're not trying to tell people what they should do. You're just presenting to them, here's, it's called the way. I mean, that's what the Essenes called it. That's
That's
what,
what the Essenes, yeah.
yeah, that's what everybody has really called it in all the esoteric schools and mystery schools, is it's called the way. Even in Nepal and Tibet, they call it the way. And so if I follow the way and I do the best I can in the way, we can't be perfect, it's not possible. But if I do the best I can and I reach certain points in the way, all I want to do is just show people and hopefully help people find that there is a different choice they can make. That's it. It's up to them to take it. But the more we can serve others in that capacity, our heart just becomes more full and more full. And now we're not defined anymore at all. We're just the truth of who we are, which is divine intelligence trying to find a way to find its way into your heart.
I think that's what every one of the five of us who are in spirit partners
Mm-hmm.
um, is committed to,
Mm-hmm.
is just bringing that authenticity of those possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
the the whole range of choices people have for how can I get on this path? How can I get on
Yeah.
the way? Okay.
Yeah.
How can I take the first step? What's the thing that Tomei has said, or what's the thing that Al Rowe has said,
Mm-hmm.
or what is the thing that Shah Spady is going to show us about the blueprint of our soul and where we're in resonance with that and where we're not? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's not telling anybody how to be, she's simply, I mean, revealing what's there. Well, what
Yeah.
you've revealed is the what's there for us is in a way unlimited
It's totally
if we
unlimited.
if we
Yeah.
if we choose. Okay.
Yeah.
The spirit partners of the universe, which includes our own team of, if you want to call them spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, you call them the group.
Mm-hmm.
I call mine spirit partners,
Mm-hmm.
which is where the name came from. Um, but they're there. They're absolutely there to support,
Mm-hmm.
support, support, support. And you'll know it when you just feel that just they've got your back and they've just helping you move
Yeah.
forward where you're going. In my
One
case,
of
if
the
if
yeah.
I may just add this, in my case,
Sure.
I have had more insights. I mean, more just ideas, insights, possibilities, things flood in the last couple of weeks than I think I've ever had in any
Mm-hmm.
period of doing this work. It's just because it's almost like an accumulative benefit. It just
Mm-hmm.
gets easier and easier and expands and expands and expands.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, One of the things that is I guess I can use the word difficult on our journey or on a way, are the challenges. Because it's almost like there inherently we believe that when we get to a certain point, um, okay, I'm there now. I've got this kind of a thing. And then a challenge comes up that out of nowhere you're just like, why me? I mean, what did I do? And that's our inability to see ourselves as divine intelligence. It brings us back to being the unworthy ego of who we are. And in some of the writings and even in some of the things I listen to, Yeshua has said this over and over again. And he basically said that the reason we give you challenges, and so when he says we, he's talking about the beings and the universe and so on. The reason we give your challenges is to test your faith. Do you truly have heart driven faith, or is it a mind definition of faith? because faith in the heart is a feeling. It's the depth of a feeling that says, I know this is going to be hard. I know this is going to be tough. And the why me is never, never a part of the equation. It's always, I'm going to pull myself together and see how I can walk through this. What can I learn from this? How deep is this? And quite frankly, the challenges that are going to come your way are going to be greater as you go. It makes no sense that you'd be walking through the same challenge you had last week. Why would you do that? You've already done it. There's no reason to repeat something to make yourself feel good. So you're going to be presenting yourself, and the universe will do this, challenges that seem a little bit tougher than the last one. And it's to test you. Do you really want to be on the way? Can you trust us? Do you have faith in you? Do you have faith in us? Can you trust yourself? Will you listen? Do you hear us? What the situation will present. And so all that's about is to open your divine intelligence in your heart even more. Is to say, you'll keep doing this until the day you pass away. It's not going to end. You'll be on your deathbed, and I guarantee you there's going to be another challenge. You can scream and yell at the nurse because she pricked you the wrong way before she finally gave you a solution to make you feel better before you pass away. Or you can look at her and say, thank you for giving this to me, even though it hurts like hell. To not allow your ego to come forward because she's doing something, trying to do something for you, as opposed to your ego thinking she's doing something to you. And we can use that in all parts of life, quite frankly. Instead of taking things personally and thinking people are doing things to us, they're doing things for us. Well, yeah, but look at what they just did. They did something for you to wake you up to see how you're going to react. Are you going to react through your ego in this situation, or are you going to act through your heart? Which one's it going to be? So they actually presented you a challenge for you, not to you.
The issue, if I may use my case as an example,
Sure.
is the right wrong game.
Yeah.
That this is good and this is bad. Okay, this is better, this is worse. And seeing everything through that judgmental lens.
Right.
And that may be, as you say, maybe we never meet the ultimate challenge. But I know in my case, given all the conditioning and given all the stuff, and no matter how much inner work I've done, that creeps up.
Of
That's
course.
just there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And no matter how much you feel you've released it and are liberated, etc., it just rears its wonderful head occasionally in big ways. Okay. Even after you've had incredible liberating experiences. Okay. It still can be there.
Oh, it is there.
But so much more of life plays out without it having to be there if you've really done the work.
Well, and yeah, we've talked about that too in other podcasts. It's like we're not trying to be perfect. We're not going to be. So what we're doing is trying to be 51%. So if I can be 51% in as many situations that are presented to me without judging them, I've had a pretty good day. And if I can enhance that as I go, then it's even a better day, and so on. I just keep going with it. Um, as the Yassine so rightly said, everything in front of me is there to help me master myself. If I can look at that same way as much as I can, moment to moment, and say, okay, I can judge this, and boy, everybody would say I should judge this, but you know what? What's going on here? This is here to help me master myself. What does that mean? What does that mean for me? Because somebody else would say, well, that's no big deal. But to me, it's huge. And so I have to be with it as best I can to see what's the underlying understanding here to help me master myself. And it could be to draw out within me, say, a betrayal energy that's been sitting there forever because somebody just betrayed me. So it draws out all that energy that's sitting there in a pool of betrayal. And now, for the first time in so many years, I'm facing the energies that have been sitting there. And it took one person to trigger me to do it. They did something for me. If I see they're doing something for me, and I'm seeing what the Essenes say, that everything in front of me is here to master myself and I don't judge it, and I'm with it, then I have the opportunity to release something that I'm carrying that doesn't serve me. And it wouldn't have happened unless I got triggered. So I can come back and be in gratitude for the person that betrayed me so I can find my emptiness and find my balance once again and be free from what it is that I'm holding. That's again allowing divine intelligence in the heart to being in the moment.
I don't know what else to say beyond that. This has been an extraordinary exposition and revealing of things that are so relevant and so fundamental and so true for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I mean, unbelievable. Um, I have some ideas for where we might go next.
Sure.
Let's leave those be a surprise to our audience.
And to
Uh,
me.
yeah, and to you. That's right. At the last minute, I'll give you some of my ideas. Um, yeah, but I so value this because as much as we've worked together, and as many times as we have probed these same issues together,
Mm-hmm.
um, every time I hear it, it evokes things. I go deeper, I learn more, I release more. There's more awareness, and I'm ever so grateful. So
No,
thank
I'm really in gratitude for you inviting me to do
thank you.
these. So um, yeah, I'm very honored to do all this too. So
Good.
yeah.
Okay. Well, till next time, and that's likely to be soon. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Audience, thank you. I deeply appreciate your continued attendance here. And sure enough, next time we'll bring you something equally valuable and deep, and significant for your life. So thanks very much.
Thanks,
Herman,
guys.
thank you. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.